Yeah, so we're going to run through this. Obviously, all my scanners are up in education channel, and they're a little bit different to this one just because I've removed some of the things from mine, just because I can deal with a couple more options. I mean, I'll even take this off and I'll go for a lot of tickers if I really fancy it, but we'll keep it as sensible as we can. Wow, I just lost my mouse. Are you kidding me on? What a time. There we go. So I'll put it back on just now, but this is a little bit different to what you'll see in education channel. If you want to have more tickers, you can filter stuff around, because obviously we've got like betas on there, and we've added the 200 and the 20 and a couple of other things. So it's up to you obviously what you want to do with this and how many tickers you want to look through. Obviously it just depends how fast you're going to be looking at them, because I don't want people sitting staring at tickers and scanners for like 5, 6, 7 hours a day, try to find some positions. So if you can limit them until you get a bit faster, and then obviously as your pattern recognition kind of starts to grow, you can take some stuff off and look at some more tickers and look at some more charts. So we're going to look through this one, and obviously, as I was saying at the start, we're not going to go through 605 tickers, because that just wouldn't be helpful, and we're not going to go through it at the pace that we'd be going through it, because obviously I'd just be like scanning down this like this quick and then just going to the next page, and if I don't find anything, which is not going to be helpful for any of you guys. So we'll go through them. We'll just pick a couple of charts, and we'll just talk about what kind of patterns we see, and if it's worth taking them out, writing them down, putting them over into TradingView or Thinkorswim and charting them out, and then what to do next after that one. So obviously, as we've said before, there's a couple of things that we want to avoid with the charts in this one. And obviously, the first thing I tell you to do is to turn off this technical one, because obviously you can see in these technical ones, they draw you patterns. And most of the time they're close to being right. But obviously there's not someone on the other end of the screen that's drawing these lines. These are all done by software. So, I mean, you can see this one, they're kind of off and they're cutting through lines, and this one's just doing its own thing. I mean, there's so many patterns inside these patterns that the software is just not finding. And we can play the micro patterns, and we can play different patterns than they're showing. And they'll end up being slightly off, because obviously they've got their own kind of algorithm as to where they start and end the lines, whereas we do it slightly differently to make sure ours are as precise as they can be, so that we can get that best risk reward that we can possibly get. Because quite often you'll see some of the charts on this, the lines will end up being like 10-15% off by the time you get to the distance that you're looking to buy from where they started, because obviously they're looking at a really long time frame. So the first thing to do is obviously just use candle. If you want to get a bit of help with it, you can obviously click the ticker and it'll bring up the bigger chart, and it will have those kind of things on it. You can turn them off, and you can have the interactive technical charts, and you can get a bit more range on it, and obviously see all the kind of fundamental stuff underneath as well. But we're just going to, what I tend to do obviously is just look at these small charts, and that will give me enough of a grasp of what's going on in the ticker just now, that we can then make a kind of educated guess on if this is going to be something worth charting, because we don't want to sit for hours and chart every single one of these, because obviously there's a lot more work that we should be doing outside of market time, rather than just trying to find plays. We want a set number of plays. We don't want to like overdo it and get distracted and have too many things going on that we end up missing the best one. So we want to find maybe like 15-20 tickers, put them to one side, chart them up, find the best ones of those. If some aren't quite ready but they look nice at that time, sending me ad blocker. I'll attach ad blocker at some point. Yeah, I forgot what I was saying there. Anyway, so as I've said before as well, there's a couple of things we want to avoid. So we want to avoid things that are in a major downtrend. So I will pretty much avoid kind of large scale falling wedges, and I will avoid things that are in the downside of the trade, the backside of the trade. So anything that's kind of been falling for a long time. There are obviously exclusions to this. So things like where it's downtrending like this, but to a support level, it's still in the front side of the trade. So we can still play these, and we can still play these, and we can play bull flags. But we don't want to be kind of looking at long-term downtrends and trying to guess where to enter. because obviously the way we trade and the way we're kind of talking to you guys about trading is to make sure we have that risk reward and have those set levels. And if something's trading downwards for a long period of time, if you're trying to use the previous low as your stop loss, is above where you're buying. So it just makes it a bit too hard to kind of work out your levels. So we're wanting to try and find things that are in either horizontal or rising channels, or we're going to want to find things that are in set patterns that we can use the breakout plays on. There are obviously other things we want to avoid, so things like this where it's already had its kind of major move. We don't want to be kind of looking to try and swing something like this. You could day trade things like this, and you could wait for like a 3-bar play like we did on Alf. But we don't want to be trying to take a swing position in something that's already made its move. We want to have been in down here and be way scaling out by the time it's done something like this. Same with like these ones where it's already gapped up. We don't want to be kind of trying to buy into something that's already had its move. We want to be selling to the people that are buying up in these areas and trying to day trade. We want to give them our shares, and we've already locked in our gains. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of go through these ones and we'll have a check. So obviously we'll rule out these first two and this one as well, because we've kind of we've just talked about they've already had their move. This one's obviously moved quite far, but it is kind of coming into a descending triangle, you can see here as well. So you can see the trend line coming down here, and we've got the flat line here. So that you could eventually have a breakout play on something like this, but it has had quite a lot of movement, so you'll be waiting for it to either break and confirm, or to downtrend and pull back first and then make another move up. But this wouldn't be kind of something at the top of my watch list. If we're moving further down again, so we've got POW, so a couple of us were actually playing this last week, and I know I think some of the people in the option room might have been playing it as well. I think Girldad Ninja was sending me loads of stuff about it. So something like this, obviously this to you or to me, it looks like it's way broken out, and yes, it has way broken out. And obviously you can see in the kind of main chart as well that it has broken out, and it's gone way up. So we don't want to be doing something like that either, because this is just not a sensible time to buy. And obviously there was plays available in this when it broke out of this first kind of fallen pennant, and it broke out the second pennant. You could have played and you could have got some good gains on it, but it's not something we're wanting to be buying right now. This one I'm really long in already, but again, you can just see without even taking this over to TOS or TradingView that you've got your pretty strong line here that we've broken out of. So then you've got your resistance coming from this movement up here. We've got resistance here, and we bounced off it and we came back down. So again, what we'd be looking for this one is either a breakout play of this one, a pullback to the former level, or a move up. So it could be something you want to kind of add to a future list or add to like a back burner watch list. But it's not something that we want to stick on the watch list for this week. And that's obviously what we're trying to do just now, is find plays that we want to be looking at either for this week or the next coming weeks, maybe 2 weeks or so in advance. So obviously you'll see a lot of these ones at the top, because I've sorted my thing by volume. A lot of the ones in these top pages are going to be quite hard to find a play on. So I usually kind of zoom through the first couple of pages until I find better plays. But it is completely kind of, it's not dependent on volume. The highest volume one isn't always going to have broken out. It could be a high volume kind of bounce. It could be high volume reversal. So we'll still want to look at them. We just won't want to be buying ones that have done their big breakouts already. So even things like VTNR, where it's bounced out of its pattern and its move, we don't want to be trying to swing something like this.
So, Broda, you're 5 minutes in. I already have a question for you. So on these ones that kind of stick up a flagpole, and maybe they've had one day of sort of what might be the beginnings of a low volume pullback back to kind of retest a support level that's nearby below. Are you saying that that's something that you're not necessarily looking at for this week, or yeah, I guess that's really the question.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm guessing you're meaning something like SIAC, where it's moved up and it could pull back down to like the 120, 130 zone and then make another move.
Yeah, but let's say that the last candle on SIAC was actually like a small red on a low volume pullback, like closer back down to that trend line.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely add it to your watch list. It probably wouldn't be my top play for the week. because obviously you guys know how I work. I'll check this every single day. So if I'm wanting something, and generally the plays I'll put up on the Monday pre-markets or the Sunday nights, I'll generally try and find the ones that we can get an entry in near the start of the week. You could have something like this kind of on your back burner watch list, and I usually post a back burner watch list, and those are ones that might be a couple of days until they've found that kind of reversal and bounce, or they've found the key level for a breakout to watch. And I don't tend to post the charts because I'll leave you guys to kind of work out why I've got them in my back burner. But yeah, something like this, we could wait for it to come back down and reverse on the line and make a second leg. But what obviously would annoy me at this, or not annoy me at this, but what would worry me in this one is, yes, we could pull back and we've got a doji here that we could play off of as a support line, but we'll want a confirmation bounce. So if we get that kind of confirmation bounce of the 120s, 130 zone, and we're looking for a move back up, we know we've got a level of resistance here, so we're going to need a lot of volume to get through that. So yes, we could bounce it from like 125, 130 back up to the 136, 140 level. But we already know there's an issue of getting over this level, and we've got levels up here to kind of be in our way. So we know that we're going to have a problem. We don't have that free space. And you guys know that obviously most of the time with my channel plays, I'll be looking for kind of upwards of maybe like 15, 20, 30% in the channel range. So we've got that ability to scale out on the way up and lock in some gains. Whereas on something like this, we'll kind of be wanting to bounce it all the way back up because we don't really have an intermediate level in here. So we could do something like that. It's just obviously not as perfect a play to me as I'd want it to be. But you guys know I'm just kind of OCD with my strategies and how I want to play them. So it would definitely be something for a back burner, but it wouldn't be kind of top level watch list. But yeah, you could bounce it between those levels. But I'd be waiting for it to show me either a confirmation of this level or show me another pattern. Because all we've got right now is a doji and then a bullish candle and then a reversal from resistance. So there's no reason to be kind of focusing all your energy on that one.
All right, right on. Thanks, Berto.
So same with this one here. We've had a big move on good volume, and we know we've got a level here at that 250 zone because we've dipped below it, we've regained it, we've dipped below it, we've had a nice candle up, and then we've just been killed all the way underneath it. So for something like this, obviously what we would have wanted to do, well, we wouldn't probably have wanted to be getting in down here because we can see this is new lows down here. But what we want something for this to do is either break out of a key level, come back down and retest in a higher low and break back up again, or what we want to do, obviously, because we can see this 3 level here, this gives us our descending triangle, and what it could do from this 3 level is bounce back down to like the 140s, 139s, ones, 240s, 250s, and give us an inverse head and shoulders and give us a move up. So even on something like this, we don't want to be buying here. We want to be buying before it makes the move or once it's confirmed a new move or a new pattern, because this is not a pattern right now. It's got potentials to make a pattern, and that's obviously something that we'll be looking for it to do, but we don't want to be buying something like this right now. So again, this one we'll rule out because this is just madness. Things like this we can look at, and obviously things like this kind of confuse people because it looks a bit kind of wicky and it's bouncing all over the shop, and most people will probably look at a chart like this and be like, this is just nonsense, I'll skip to the next one. And obviously, yes, you might be right to skip to the next one, but what we can see is this area is a bit of noise. We've got a lot of volume here, so what I'd be looking for this one to do is kind of give me a pullback and a reversal sign. Because we don't like this doji, and I don't like this movement right now, but we can see we had a pretty strong level here and it's just had a real issue of getting over this level. But this is really strong volume that's coming into this right now, which is something that is always kind of interesting in a stock as to why the volume is doing what it's doing, and whether that's news related or whether they're bringing it down to try and do something with the stock, and like Mello always says, bring it down to get his cheapies that he loves. This will be something that we could kind of watch because we can see we made lows and we've made a double bottom here at the low levels, and then we made higher lows all the way up. So we can continue to make higher lows. We can start to see some patterns forming. Obviously, as you guys know, I love my trend lines, and trend lines will be something that's hard to do in this one because obviously we were following this trend here and we broke it, and that's where we got that big reactive candle that James always talks about. So that was our trend line break. So we're looking for it to recover, but we always have to note that that trend line will then become resistance. But because it's steep enough here, we do have range from where it will bounce to where that trend line will be. So it's probably, again, not something we'll be looking at straight away, but it could be something for a couple of weeks' time or a couple of days' time, depending on what happens. But as I said, we'll always come back to the same scanners every day and just see what's happened and see what's changed. But then we're on to something like PBGI. And obviously we all know what happened this week with the stock, and we were all playing it beforehand. And for those reasons, chances are I'd probably not be getting in right now, because we know what's happened. We know it's had a lot of noise about it, and we know it's had a lot of eyes on it and a lot of volume coming in. It's given us a lot of nice moves and a lot of nice gains already, but we can see patterns forming here, and we can see a solid support movement here, and we can see the downward movement of the resistance here. So it is forming a pattern, and obviously just because we know the news, it would be something I'd personally avoid, but chart-wise, it's not a bad chart. Because obviously we've got a really strong trend line coming up here, and we have broken underneath it, but you can see here we've dojied. Once we broke down after that level, we had some reversal candles in here. So we could be looking for this to move, and if we didn't know the news, it could be something that we would look at. It won't be something I'll be putting on the watch list, but these are more like the charts we want to look at using. So they're not pushing up too high, they're not a bit too wicky, and they've not kind of made their move. This has already had its pullback, and it could have been something that we'd look to kind of swing back up. And we'll obviously, what we'll see in these charts is when we're expecting news to come out, we can tell that from the chart. So we can tell if news has come out, and we can tell if news is waiting to come out from a chart. And I know you guys have all seen VTSI that we go on about all the time. And that chart was just waiting for news, and they knew it was waiting for news. And it was obviously waiting for contract news, which has still not come out. And they've let it run anyway. But see, when you see things like that, where it's like an ascending triangle in a pattern like that, they're waiting for the news to come out, so they set the charts up. And then they time the news for the chart, and that's where you get these explosive moves. And you can see this was obviously trying to do that. So I had to move up and add your trend line down here, and your nice kind of flag and your pennant. And what they'd be looking to do is just have exploded this one up. And obviously it got killed. So we had that wee inside bar up here, and they killed it. And that's obviously because they delayed the merger. So what they'll be looking for now is to build it back up into a nice pattern again for when the news will come out, whenever that will be. So then we've got something like this, and this is something that does kind of interest us. So what we can see here is we do have a line along this level. And I know a lot of you guys will be drawing your trend line up here, and you'll be like, oh, it's from here to here, and it's going up to here. And yes, that could be your trend line, but what you need to think of is what is actually going on in the ticker. So we've bounced up here, we've retraced, we've moved up, we've retraced, made a higher low, we've gone up, and we've failed to make a higher high. And obviously we don't like things that aren't managing to make a higher high, because this could be a head and shoulders. So you've got your left shoulder, your head, and your other shoulder here. But what we'll need to look for this to do is to make another higher low. And if it can make another higher low and hold its strength and reverse on itself, this could be something that we could look at, because obviously this bit here to me is an overextension, and that's what will create that head and shoulders pattern. That's an overextension, and this is probably a safer reversal level for the stock at the time, because you can see this is a perfect doji up the top here, which is one of our strongest reversal signs, whether it's at the top or whether it's at the bottom. Those are something that you really need to be aware of, and those are kind of one of the best reversal signs we can look for as a swing play. Is that someone asking questions? Oh yeah, you can ask in here, or you can ask on voice. Just ask whatever you fancy. So this is something that probably would interest me, just to see what it can do next, because we can see it's got moves in it. and it's got moves twice. So there's been a great move up here, another great move here, and you could have played a faster move in this bit. And then obviously what it's trying to do right now is decide what it's doing next. And we've had a lot of volume coming in, and we've done a kind of spinning top in here. So we need to wait and see what it does next. But if it keeps holding a higher low trend line, so you can see the trend line's going from these bits up here through this one. So if it can hold in here, we could end up seeing a chart that looks very close to what we saw with Rail. And Rail obviously gave a lot of people a lot of good money and a lot of good percentage gains this last week, even though it was coming out of that Head and Shoulders pattern. So yes, Head and Shoulders is not something we want to buy into, but it doesn't mean they're going to pull it all the way down at the bottom again. They obviously could do, but we can still chart them up and we can still have our levels to see where it should reverse or where it could reverse. And then we can see if it bounces off of that one. And then if it obviously does, we can then play the run back up. And whether it then makes a higher high, or whether it makes another lower high, or whether it forms another pattern, that will obviously be up to the ticker and what they let it do with it. Your eyes are drawn to Kin. Yes, we can look at Kin in a second. So this will be something that we could kind of, again, put on our back burners, and you'll see a lot of these ones on the first page end up being on the back burners. And that's just kind of what tends to happen because I organise it by volume. If you don't want to organise it by volume, you'll probably get some on the first page. But I like to do it this way because then I can scan through the first page and see if things are set up and they've got a lot of eyes on them. If they don't, we'll ignore them. And we'll take a look at Kin just because Father's asked. So this is obviously some madness that's going on in here, which could quite easily be a split or something. I don't know what they've done. They're getting investigated for something anyway. When is it they moved? 16th. Well, that will tell us why. Oh yeah, acquisition. So it got acquired, which is why it got that move. I love Dumfries and Arsenal.
Oh, I didn't see it jump in that tiny chart. I didn't see that bounce way up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so things like that, obviously, we wouldn't want to play, and even at this level, this could have been a play, just to see what it did next if it held in this zone. Because we do have it kind of holding higher than the last candle, so it would have given us a risk to play off of. But yeah, they've obviously got a merger in, and that's just popped it all the way up there, and it doesn't actually look like it's got much range going on up here. It looks like it's kind of just flatlining right now, so yeah, probably not something to play, but it definitely did have its move. So we'll skip through some of these ones because they're a little bit mad. So there's a couple here that we will look at just now. This one we actually had in the channel. I think it might have actually been Gup that brought it in.
Yeah, that's me.
There he is. So this was actually a really good chart, and I'm sure you guys all know exactly what pattern is going on here. You can see it's been pulled all the way down here, and it's reversed. It's gone lower, and it's reversed, and it's gone higher and reversed. So we've got that inverse Head and Shoulders here. And what it's done is obviously break out of that key level, and it's got its move. And where it's stopped is obviously where this doji is over here, where it's obviously come down reversed from and gone back up. This one obviously would have been a brilliant buy in this level when it got its breakout. And this was something I was going over with the guys last week in the channel, was when it gets its breakout, what do we do and how do we play it? And obviously something like this, you'll be looking at this like, I can't buy up here, and you're right, you can't buy up here. That's not sensible to buy up here. Even though you've got this range, and you could be like, oh well, it could go back to 5. Yeah, it could go back to 5, but it could also come back down to that support level. So what we should have done if we were playing this one, I don't know if Gup actually played it in the end or not, would have been to buy at the break of this and play it up here. And then what you would have been wanting to do is start to look to scale out probably relatively good size where you've got that level from this. So you would have been scaling out at the top of the day.
Yeah, I didn't play it I'm watching it to see if it'll come back down and kind of retest and try to make that leg up.
That second leg up, exactly. So that's the other way we'd play this one. So there's two ways. We'd obviously play it up, scale out, and wait for it to retest and play back up. Or we'd leave those lottos to run if it doesn't want to come back down. But we want to make sure we've made our money off this, because this is still really good percentage gains. And regardless if you've got a $100,000 account or a $1,000 account, you want to lock in that money. And this is good gains. And what we always say is it doesn't matter how much money you've made on a day, it just matters the percentage you've made. Because your account will grow, but you don't want to try and hold for those Hail Marys and those Holy Grail. So you don't want to try and play this all the way up from 3.5 to 5. You want to cut your money out here, because you don't know what's going to happen, especially over a weekend. You don't know what's going to happen when it comes back round to Monday. So this would have been a really good play, and obviously this pattern was so well set up. And that was really well done for Gut for finding that play and putting it in the channel, even though I don't actually think any of us played it. But this would have been something last week that we would have looked to play. And again,
I think I even felt like I found it a little late, to be honest. It was just something that caught my eye because of the range, mainly.
Yeah, I mean, you think you caught it late, but I'm pretty sure you caught it in these candles in one of these 2 days. So you definitely still had that potential to move, and what it obviously did here was break the level and come back down and be forced underneath. But you can see that volume, that was great volume. So we've got a volume downtrend here, and you can see the one time it pops up here was it reversing off of this flag, and it reversed up and it broke this flag, and then it carried on up, and then it's got really strong volume as it moves into that breakout level, which is obviously something we want to see. We want to see it have volume going into those breakout levels, because if it doesn't have that kind of force behind it to move it out of those levels, we don't want to play it, because chances are it will just get brought back down.
Yeah, I would have caught it on the 20th. So wherever that is in those candles is where I would have found it. I would have caught it on the Sunday before.
Yeah, you would have had loads of time then. You could have played this breakout down here, and you would have made some really good money. And even if we caught it down here, what we would have done is we would have played it up to here and scaled out when it broke over that and got rejected. And then we could have played lotto shares up from there, or we could have scaled back in for the next move. What would have been your entry point on this had I been watching? On this one, my entry point, obviously, as I was just in there, if Gup told me last weekend and I was actually paying attention, my entry point would have been the breakout of this flag. So we can see this has gone up, and we've got this flag in here, and we've got a really strong base. So what I would have done with this one would have been to take shares on the break of this flag. So you would have had a trend line drawn on this downtrend down here, and what would have done is play the intraday chart on a breakout play. And I always play the intraday chart, because even though this doesn't look like it's broken up and retested this flag, it will have done intraday, and it will have broken out, and it would have retested the downtrend, and then it would have played up, and we would have bought in that intraday retest, and would have played that move all the way back up from there. So we could have had it in maybe like 310s or something, up to this 395 level, which is a really, really strong percentage gain. And even something like this FFHL, you can see in here, this is also an inverse head and shoulders, even though it's got a bit of a slant to it. They were bringing it up to this level, and it just gapped up huge. And whether this was news or not, you need to be aware that they do bring out the news, and they do PR at the time where the charts are ready for it. And it's all really well calculated. So if we can find charts that are setting up well, you can always try and play them, because whether it doesn't get hit by news or whether it does get hit by news, it won't affect you, because if it doesn't and it pulls back, you've got your risk there that you can play off of, and you're safe, and you're not going to be holding a bag. And if it does get hit by news, it's just money. And we had quite a good few examples of that one in the channel last week, and obviously I think Gixxers were probably the best examples of that, with Rail obviously getting the infrastructure build, but he was just playing the chart. Jan, it got some ridiculous news that halted it, but again, Gixxer was just playing the chart. So we didn't need to know that a catalyst was coming, because the chart will provide us with opportunities to get that money when the catalyst does hit.
Hey, Berta, I have a question on this page in case you're going to go next.
Right as I click next.
Oh, shit, sorry. So Is STRR an inverse head and shoulders?
Yeah. What makes you think it wasn't?
I didn't know if so the peak that your cursor's right under, it seemed a little bit higher than the peak back to the left. And so I didn't know if that would technically be like a break that then just failed and came back down.
Oh, I see what you mean, like a fake out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a fake out or not won't really affect you because it's still regained its other shoulder here and it made the breakout. So we still could have played this higher low level, or we could have played the trend line break that was going up here, which would have probably ended about at the start of this candle where it went off. So yeah, this bottom portion is your inverse head and shoulders. Up to here is not. So this breakout wouldn't be an inverse head and shoulders breakout. This would be a different kind of break, and that's why it's got rejected. But this bit down here up to this kind of level here.
Yeah, the neckline's lower, certainly.
Yeah, but what is also kind of key, and I think a lot of people, when they learn these patterns or when they Google them and they see the kind of pattern concepts that people have drawn on their education sites, and they always draw the head and shoulders absolutely perfect. And it's always just like left shoulder in a flat line, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and everything just perfectly hits that flat line. That's not always the case, and more often more often than not is not the case where you get that perfect head and shoulders. You can get things that are squint like this one, or you can get things that have a bit of movement in them, but there will be a trend line somewhere in there that you could have played, and possibly there's a trend line that actually goes slightly squint up like that, so it might not have broken out. It might not have actually been a fake out. It could have been a line going this way, and your head and shoulders is just kind of onto a squint neckline. So it's not always a flat neckline for those patterns, which is kind of key, because I saw a few people in the channel going, no, that's not a head and shoulders because it's not done this, or it's not an inverse head and shoulders because it's like this. But it's just the concept of a low, a lower low, and then a higher low, or obviously the inverse for a head and shoulders.
So would you have liked STRR?
You're just going to make me keep going back to that page, aren't you?
I'm not trying to. I mean,
Framing the questions
to.
perfectly. Yeah, so I probably would have played it. Obviously, as I was saying, we've got this trend line that's going through this level, and we don't try and catch the bottoms. And there's obviously a lot of traders that are really good at swinging reversals, and they'll try and catch them when it bounces on levels like the 50 or whatever EMA or magical theoretical line they've got drawn. And that's, if they're managing to do that, that's great. But obviously, that's not how we play. And if that's something you want to add to your kind of playbook, you can do that. But I wouldn't have been trying to catch this down here unless we had it perfectly on a trend line. But it would have been something that I would have taken out and charted, and I'm pretty sure I did take it out and chart it. And if it caught that line in reverse, I would have played it. Otherwise, we could have played the break of the trend line, depending where it ends up.
Yeah, what I thought was, if you draw that trend line kind of where you're talking about, it kind of looks like that last small green that then has that red retest before the first big green candle. I was thinking that would be a potential entry just depending upon that line. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, this would be, again, this is what we do, and this is what we obviously see. If we see things that interest us, it's hard to kind of just imagine where the trend line is. And obviously, as good as you are at pattern recognition and spotting where the trend lines are, you need to take it out and chart it. So what we would have done with this one is take this chart, jump into one of our charting softwares, put it in, and then draw the trend line and see where it was and see what it was doing. And that's obviously key when you're finding what's happening. And obviously what we would have done with this one, and we can see it's caught here, it's dojied on the line here, it's tested it here as well. It's kind of faked out under it, but what we could have played was obviously these retests here, and as soon as it kind of regained that 50 on this volume, it just flew. So we probably would have been buying on these levels once it got the retest over here. And that was the candle I was looking at, so woo!
Exactly. So yeah, that was the next stage of what we do in this flow, but taking out the chart to actually make sure you get those lines perfect is really important, because we don't want to just guess off of what we see in this. So this one is something obviously we could look at as well, because obviously we talk about channels a lot and upward channels a lot, and everyone knows I love my channel plays. Something like this, however, is less convincing. And obviously what you can see in this one is it kind of finds that bottom trend line, sure, and it's got the top trend line as well, and you could bounce it up and down in those lines. But what we're doing up here is we've obviously got big range, and we've made a huge move up and a really good strong move up here, and then what we'd be doing is just kind of bouncing it for a day or a couple of days, and we could make some decent gains on it. But the problem obviously this one is it's got a really strong volume in this day, and this is not a bullish candle. So whether or not it holds the trend line this time or not, we'll need to wait and see. But because of the extension of the chart already, it's not something that kind of we'd put on high priority. And so obviously just because we say, oh yeah, we love these channel plays, yes, you would have a channel play in here. But what you also need to look out for is what it's actually doing in the scale of the chart, and like to the left of the chart. And when it's doing these things, it will need to kind of retest something eventually. And just this trend line here might not be strong enough for this to just keep going forever. It's going to have to breathe. And these channels don't last forever when they're up at this height. So yes, it is a channel, but we don't want to kind of be like, yes, this is definitely what we want to play right now. But now that we're on the second page, we'll start to find things that are a bit more interesting, and we'll find more as we go through. So we'll, what I'll actually do just now is, I'll zoom out a little bit, and what I'll do is see what you guys think is your top play from this page, just based off these little charts. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to kind of look at them, whether you want to comment a voice or whether you want to write it down in the channel, it's fine. But if you want to just have a peek at just the snippets of the chart, see what one interests you, and stick it in, or give me a reason why you think it is, and we'll see what ones we can find, and then we'll look at those ones and we'll have a look at those in the charts, and see what we're obviously going to look at, because me telling you what is good and what's bad on that first page should hopefully give you enough indication of what we want to be looking at in this one. Here's my boys in with the E-locks.
How was FLL looking?
FLL. On here. FLL was a channel. I broke it up here. E-locks higher lows. E-locks seems to be in a positive channel towards the bottom of it. E-locks, Codx, and VIRX. Codx. So we've got 3 different ones so far. Gup, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm looking at a whole bunch that I would have liked to have seen the inverse head and shoulders before it popped. I like ELOX. I liked EMKR, as I will admit before your explanation. After your explanation makes perfect sense. Why it'd be a little bit worrying. I would want to look left on BCLI to know what's going on at that level, but I can't tell if that last candle is a spinning top or if it's solid green, because it's kind of blurry to me.
Which one? This one down here?
Yeah, but what's that last candle?
Yeah, it's a spinning top.
Maybe not. Yeah, I'd probably ride with the LOX. Right, without pulling the chart, other than just what I'm seeing here.
Right, we've got a few good ones now.
Sun W
Sun
looks
W.
fairly okay
Sun W looks more than fairly okay.
because it's got like an ascending triangle look that it might break.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like DPW here too.
Sorry, there's a motorbike outside there. I missed what you said there.
DPW.
DPW.
Yeah, in this chart they're making higher lows. Looks like there's a maybe you can draw a top support there.
Mm-hmm.
So my place is FLL and DPW, I guess, for me.
FLL. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So we get 9 charts out of a possible 25 that we like. I think it looks like ELOX was the top one. So we'll look at that one first. Wherever it is. Where is it?
Second row, third from left.
Right, so what are we seeing in this one then? So we've got, seems to be a positive channel and towards the bottom of it, and we've got higher lows. So we are playing this one as a channel up. Some W is a good sector play. Some W is definitely a good sector play right now. And that is a different kind of swing, but definitely still a good swing. So from first glance, obviously what we can see in this one is that we do have a bottom trend line here. And the bottom trend line is obviously starting at this candle here and going up through these ones and up to here. And then what's happened is we've broken down out of it. So it's not actually technically on the bottom of the channel anymore because it's broken out, but what it has done is reverse back round on a prior support level, which is obviously caused by this pattern in here. So yes, we have a channel up, but we've also got inside pattern, so we've got a pennant in here and we've moved up off that one. And then what we've done is we've reclaimed this support level where this doji was having issues. And what we'd be looking for this one to do is obviously, because this candle came up and tested up here where we can see this has got a shoulder and then a head and then a shoulder. What we could play in this one is obviously from this one, if we'd caught it on this candle, and probably not because it's already moved. Unless the sun's been in some W since 9:50. Damn. So if we could catch it on this bottom support line, or what we could obviously do is play the breakout of this inverse head and shoulders. And if I take this over, I think I've probably got it charted already because I'm pretty sure someone's asked me about it. Oh, I haven't. Oh, I did have it charted for someone earlier. So this was obviously that first trend line that we were talking about there. And it's broken out under that one and it's held the 50 and it's making a move. And then obviously what we're talking about is this line up here. Oops, that was a bit wonky. This line here for their kind of inverse head and shoulders level, to see if we could get that breakout. But what would be the problem with this chart if we're trying to play up to that level? Up.
What's up?
What would be the problem with trying to play up to that head and shoulders level from here right now?
I mean, you've got two resistances in your way. Exactly. For the first one, and the RSI is kind of headed to overbought as it is, looking like it.
I think Vamp's absolutely nailed it there as well. So what would happen is obviously we could move up and we could hit this resistance level here. And if we hit this and we come back down, then what have we got? Oh, I need to turn this magnet off. This stupid thing ruins my life. If we get a resistance here and we pull back down to here, we'll have a head and shoulders. So chances are what we'll then have to find out is what is the strongest support level that it can hold. And chances are it'll probably be this one because we can see we gap down from here and gaps our supports. We've filled the gap with this really strong candle here and we've retested this trend line level here. So this is probably your support level. If it doesn't get over this level, this will probably be what happens. And even if we test this level here, and we do break through this kind of initial trend line resistance, the next problem we will also have is obviously the top of this level, and we'll need to make sure that we make a higher high up here to make sure that we can break out of it. and then obviously we can have that as your trend line, to see what, oh my days, I just deleted the wrong thing. Try to get rid of these purple lines, just because they're a bit of a mess and they'll distract people. So this will be what we're hoping it does up here. If we can get back through this roadblock here, we'll need it to break this, and this will obviously be a really hard level for it to break. And then we'll need it to test up here to make sure that we're making a higher high. So this level, if it can break in here, it will probably hit this, and it needs to retest in here. It needs to hold that higher low. If it holds in here, then what we can do is we can play it for either the breakout, or if it gets really tight in here, we could actually play the breakout of both in one time. But you do I do always get the impression when it comes into this and it's got two levels to kind of break into at once, it gets a bit saucy, and a bit more interesting. Oh, got the wrong thing up there. Get rid of my options training. But yeah, we'll need to make sure that this plays this now, because we've obviously got that as our wick line, and we've got a body line in here as well, that we need to kind of watch out for. So we do have roadblocks in our way, and roadblocks in our way is something we want to try and avoid. And yes, there's always going to be roadblocks in a chart, and we want to try and find the best possible ones to play with the roadblocks in front of us. And something like this would have been a great play, and you could have bounced it a couple of times in here, and probably made some really good money off it. I can actually tell you how much. You would have made 40% on the wick bounces, but obviously if we were playing it sensibly, you would have been just playing up to this level and having a lotto over that. But yeah, this is a really solid chart, and you guys did well to pick it out. It is probably one of the better ones on the page, but obviously there are negatives to the chart, and what we always need to do is we need to find the negatives to the chart. Just by finding the good patterns in the chart, we can always make this look good. As Gixxer says, it's really easy to make a chart look good, but you need to find the negatives in it as well. And if I'd just have not drawn those lines, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is what we've got this, and then we've got this, and then we've got this. We're like, oh yeah, head and shoulders, what we're going to do is we're going to go right up to here, and then we're going to explode, and we're going to gap fill up to 4. And yes, that could be the case, but we need to know what our problems could be as well, so that we're prepared for something going wrong, or we're prepared for something that might happen and might affect our play, so we know where it's going to bounce down if it does bounce back down.
It's one of those ones that ends up making you sad because you pull it and chart it because it looks nice, and then when you're in the middle of charting it, you're like, could be a headache.
Exactly, and it happens a lot, but it's just something you need to just kind of get used to, because you're going to find cons, and you kind of need to find the cons in every play. Even the ones I'm putting up, there's cons in them. You just have to make sure that the risk and the reward, even with those levels, is worth the play. But we want to just kind of have like one roadblock in our way, less of a headache and having to cut out a loss. Exactly. Definitely less of a headache doing some charting than taking a red day. So we've got VIRX as well. Where's that one? You can see I never actually look at the
fourth row, second one.
Get banned out. Who just posted that? Jesus. Right. Sorry about that. I had to ban someone.
You asked to get to use the ban hammer the other day.
They got what? Who does that on a Sunday? Jesus. Right. Where's VIRX? Here we go in here. Right. So who posted this one? Deacon is in an uptrend channel. It is indeed in an uptrend channel. So let's have a look at the chart. And this is what I'll do every day when I find stuff, is I'll I should probably not have these. So you can see I've actually been playing this one before, for different reasons. But what we'll look at right now is obviously this upward channel that we're looking at just now. And what we can see here is that it was following this channel really well until it got to the top of this top channel. It couldn't work out what it wanted to do up here, even though we actually had it on our watch list. This to everyone, or hopefully to everyone, is distribution. This would be a distribution phase of the stock movement, and what it's now doing is coming down to retest something. This volume here is obviously interesting, on a kind of spinning top in here on the trend line, and so we need to see what it wants to do next. But this is the problem, obviously, with not having the lines drawn, and why we always chart, because yes, it looks like it's in an upward channel, but then as soon as we chart it, there's our con, and there's our roadblocks, and there's our issue. So obviously the problem would be for this one, yes, you could try and get some movement up to there, but your issue is obviously that's your potential risk in the trade. So you're actually kind of like a half of risk to reward, or half reward to risk, which is obviously your downfall in the ticker. So what we would want to play on this one, and what I was playing, was this bounce here and this bounce here up to the tops, making sure that we were scaling out on these middle levels. And then obviously we caught this higher low in here, and it's played again. So even if you bought here, you would have been scaling out here because you've got your prior highs. You'd have scaled out here. You've got your distribution phase, and what we're doing is we're coming back down. So what we'd want this one to do is either find support on this line, find support on this line, or break out and get over both of these lines. But whether it's got the power in it to get over these lines will depend on what obviously happens, but this is kind of an indication that something's going on in it. Whether it's got news or something, I'm not aware. I don't really check the news, as you guys know. I just play the chart, but this is obviously some roadblocks in the way.
So did you play that channel, that bottom to top?
Yep. Twice, I think.
How did you know that it was gonna kind of bounce there and move into a channel type pattern?
So what it was doing in there was forming this descending triangle. And then what we did was we came down, we tested a level here, we tested a level with the same candle, and we got this nice little candle here, which is inside. So what we did, or what I did the first time, was play the breakout of this level in here upwards. And then the second bounce is obviously the ones that we really want to play. So this wasn't a play for that I would have been posting in the group. This one would have been, as soon as we retested that level and got that second retest, this would have been the play that I would have been posting. You can see how much stronger this move is compared to this one. This is just a straight up great swing. It's not, there would be no nerves in anyone on any day playing this swing, which is the best kind of ones to see.
Right on.
These ones are a bit nervier for anyone else. But we could still have had this level in here, because you can see it's been in play at this level before we had this nice breakout here. We retested it and then we got our big moves. So we still could have had this level on our chart, and just been waiting to see where it hits it. And once it hit it that first time, it retested the second time, we could play this move up and the confirmation of this breakout here, and this move up there.
Yeah, I'm also not paying attention to the spread between those bottom two pink lines. It's actually a good spread. So even if you were just playing that, it's good.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even if we were just playing the bottom one, you're still making 30%, which is a really, really good swing. And that's why we always would have been scaling out at least like probably 60-70% of that level, and then seeing if it got over. If it didn't get over, we'd had a nice tight stop, to make sure that we locked in as much possible gains as we could. But we don't want to just kind of YOLO and hope for the top of the channel, because you can see we've struggled with the top of the channel before. It might well hold this top level now because we broke it twice, and even when we broke underneath it, we regained it the next day. So it could hold this line here and make a move, but we need to obviously wait and see. So that'll be one of the wait and see charts. So the next one is CODX. Where's CODX? This one here. Right, now we're talking. Who called this one? DX. Impressive Emu and Father. My peeps. Well, looks like someone's been watching this one already. And that someone might have been me. So again, we have a roadblock. So you can see this is actually a perfect example of support turning into resistance. So our trend line's going up here, so first low to second low and up. When we broke through it, we got this big candle here that pulled us down, and we've gone up and retested it twice. And obviously what we've got in here is the 50 in the trend line, and that's where it's having the issues playing in right now. So what the play would obviously be on this one is either for it to find another higher low, and give us a trend line kind of going along these levels, even though they're going to be a bit ugly. We'll want it to find something in there, or what we'd want to do is wait for it to break out of this, or even out of this, depending on how strong you are in terms of buying in. But if we buy on this level, we know where our risk is. If we buy on this level, we know where our risk is. And we can just cut it, and you can cut it as quick as you want and get back in and just keep cutting it and getting back in. Doesn't matter. Just please don't bleed your account doing it. I tend to do 3 attempts and then I'll get rid of the chart. But we don't want to buy something with this roadblock and this roadblock right in front of us. We could buy in this level and play up to here, and we can check how big a distance that is. So you probably get 10% up to there, which isn't even that bad. But if we do get over this, what we'd be looking for it to do is fill this gap in here, which would end up being a really nice trade. So then we could end up playing from here all the way up, and that would give us our 30% trade, which is a lot more like what we want to be getting. So yeah, this is probably again one for a couple of weeks time, depending on what it does. So if it reverses Monday, gets over this, this could be a breakout trade play. If it comes back down and finds support somewhere else, we could play it in a different way. Definitely one for a watch list. Probably not the Monday watch list. But yeah, what I will do, just to prove that I'm not talking rubbish, is actually add it to the watch list. So you can see that I don't just ignore what people tell me. Right, CNC is the next one that we had. Civil guy, and I think we got a couple on this one. Looks good for a break over trend line with like a small pullback closer to 4. Then you have set risk to reward. He's talking my language there. Higher lows and broke the downtrend. Right, let's have a look then. So what we're thinking from the little chart is that we broke this downtrend, which we have done, and we're holding higher lows, which again you're correct with. I feel like you can already guess what's going to happen on this from the last couple of charts, if you want to hazard it before I draw the trend line in. Anyone?
Yeah, it's a roadblock.
Yeah, it's going to have a roadblock. But we've got over it. And then what we're going to get is the top level here. And then what we could look for is the levels to break. I'll delete this one for now, actually. So what we'll want, this has got some mad range on it. I don't know what they've done with this. This is a bit. This is probably something that Striker would love, so I should probably send him it later on. Just because it's got some mad range to it and a gap to fill. So this one we can see we have broken back into the trend line. I should probably have my magnet on for these trend lines, or they're going to end up a bit wonky. So we've broken back into the trend, which is, damn it, which is what we want to see it do. So we've got back into the trend now. So what we'd be wanting this to do is, we wouldn't probably be buying where it's sitting right now. Where's my little brush? We wouldn't be buying where it is right now on this level here. We could obviously buy because our risk back down to the trend line isn't atrocious. So if you're one of those people that like to buy and then scale in a wee bit and buy and do that stuff, you can definitely do it that way. So you could scale in and scale back in if it comes back down here, average down a bit, and then play it up to the line. I'd like it to actually prove a confirmation, so come back down and prove a daily confirmation candle on that trend line and then make a move. Or if it refuses to come down, I wouldn't be chasing. I'd let it go up, find a level, and then give me either a retest or a breakout. And then what we could obviously look for is what we've spoken about before, is a nice little breakout. I keep seeing things flash. I think I'm just seeing things. So we've got this trend to break, but what this trend could give us is a nice little head and shoulders up to the trend line. So if we get over this, we could probably see this quite quickly. And if we get to there, we could probably see a lot of things quite quickly in terms of upward movement. But this is a good example of inverse head and shoulder plays that aren't flat. And obviously, as I was saying earlier, what you always see in the cartoon books is just your proper inverse head and shoulders like these ones. But your chance of seeing something that perfect is pretty limited. So you need to be able to see these ones that are squint. And the necklines that are weird and they're all over the place, but it's just the concept of a lower low, and then a higher low, and that's your pattern. It doesn't have to look exactly like what they show you in the books and what they show you on all the kind of websites and whatever.
Yeah, man. The only time I see something that perfect is when I go to the restroom.
I hope it doesn't look like that. That would be very good.
It's just a joke because I know every time you draw those, you're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, dick and balls, yeah. I'll need to now cut that out of my stream. Nice. I don't know how to edit voices, but I'll cut that out somehow. But yeah, this is what we want to be looking for. So yeah, this is actually a really nice setup. We'll need to see what it does next, but obviously this volume was caused because we got back into this level and we just went for it, and it went hard and it found the neckline and got rejected. So that's what caused some of the extra volume in this one, is then bringing it back down again. But yeah, this is probably a good chart to watch. FTCI. Where's that one? I'm blind. Oh, there we go. Right, who was it that called FTCI? Vamps. FTCI doesn't look too bad either. So, I'm sure a few of you that have been in my lessons before will know why I probably wouldn't favour a chart like this. If any of you want to heather, I guess. If any of you want to take a guess as to why this might be the case before I tell?
Rising wedge.
Rising
And
wedge.
it's a new
And it's
ticker.
a new ticker. Exactly. So rising wedge, pretty damn bearish. We don't like to see that, and yeah, as you said, there's no data, and there's not enough history to the chart. I like to have history to my charts. There are some occasions where I'll play ones that don't have too much history, but they're just set up way too nice to not. And there's one in here somewhere, this one here that I can show you in a minute. But yeah, we want to try and ignore something that's doing this because it's bearish, and we want to try and ignore something that doesn't have history. So we were wanting like a good long time to look back on and see what it does and see where our levels are. And obviously what's been happening recently is they've been hitting things that don't have the left hand side of the chart, like ALF and things like this. And it's just kind of, they're going a bit mad and people are hitting it because, yes, to us it's a bit scary because we don't have that left hand side of the chart. But even the people on the other side of the trade from us, they don't know what's going to happen with it. So things like this, they kind of have to, both sides of the playing field have to work out why it is where it is and why it's going to go to somewhere next, rather than the chart will tell us why. So they need to do other things to work out what's happening, why it's happening. But yeah, rising wedge is not something we like to see, and we don't like to see it not having data. We want to try and ignore, to the best of our abilities, something that doesn't have history to it. And you'll see almost all of the ones in all of my saved lists, and there's probably a good 150 tickers or something in here. There is only one that's like that, and it's this one. And you can see exactly why I was playing it, and it's because it was a perfect example of my channel plays. And that's why I was playing something like this one. But this is a really nice example of a bounce and a bounce and a bounce and a bounce, and that's where we were playing it in here. And we ignored this move, and it's bull flagging back down. It can do whatever it wants now, but I'll probably not be playing it. But yeah, something like this you can play because you can set your risk, and even with that last one you could set your risk, but it is a rising wedge, so you could set your risk, but there's probably a higher chance that you're going to get stopped out on it. And obviously we just love to play those probability plays, and we want as much probability in the movement as possible. So we'd probably ignore this one, but this is the problem with these little FINVIZ charts. You don't get enough kind of action from it to see why you wouldn't play it or why you would play it. Because yeah, in this it just looks like a nice channel, but when you actually draw it, it doesn't. CNSE. Did I already draw out CNSE? Did I draw in the wrong chart? CNC, CNSE? Are they both on the same page? Or did I just make up a ticker? Well, it looks like I just made up a ticker. Alright, take that one back out my list. Sun W. Right, so what did we have on Sun W? We had Impressive Emu being very impressive, telling us they're in from 950. And we had Good Sector Play.
Hey, I have a question real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Why do you put like such an emphasis on the 50 EMA?
In the charts themselves, like the big yellow line, why'd I put an emphasis on that?
Yeah.
So I put it in the charts just to kind of make sure people see it. And obviously you'll see from the scanner itself that is the one thing that's kind of filtering a lot of the stocks, is that I want my price above it. And more often than not, I'll take that out because I can kind of tell where it is. And I can kind of work out where the 50 is from the chart itself. But in terms of this, what I do is when I'm charting is I'll turn everything off, and I'll do naked charting. And no, I don't want to see gifs of a naked Yoda on the floor right now. I'll just turn off all the indicators, but a lot of people do like to to play off the 50. And there's a couple of the guys that have got roles in the other channels that will literally wait for someone to bounce off the 50 line, and they'll try and play that reversal move. And that's a strategy, and people can play that strategy. It's just not something I like to do. But I do like to have that confirmation. And that's one of the levels that we'll see that a lot of people will look to, whether it's on the upside or downside, and they'll either try and buy there on that theoretical level for the bounce, or we'll see it as a roadblock and a slight roadblock on our way back up. So you can see a lot of these ones, they do interact a lot with this one. So it's like it's held it here on this doji, and then when we did get over it, we exploded. So it is one that kind of interacts a lot with these kind of daily charts, because it's kind of the indicator of the bullishness. So if the price is over, it's bullish, and if the price is under, it's not so bullish, and it's a bit more bearish. So that's why I've got it kind of indicated on the charts. I don't play it, but I like to show it on the charts that I post. Damn it. I like to show it on the charts I post in the group, just because people do play it, and it just it kind of gives that emphasis on why we're looking at things with the 50, because a lot of the times it will interact pretty strongly with that level. Was that a good enough answer?
Yeah, thanks, man.
No worries. Right, Sun W. So yeah, Sun W is a very good sector play right now. And you'll also have seen that Mr. B Mills himself dropped into the swing channel and posted this one as a swing, because it regained the 50. So you can tell how he likes to play. So this is what we were looking at in this one. And this is something we'll jump into right now, just since we've got the chart up, because this was actually something I was going to look at. So when you do bring things over to chart, if it's not obvious what's going on right now, there's a couple of things we want to do. So what we'll do is we'll remove these lines, and I've probably just given the answers away, and that's my bad. But what we can see in here is we had this trend line coming down here. I should probably have just used the actual thing instead of trying to guess. So we've got this trend line in here, that was kind of playing recently, and a lot of people would have been looking at this and they're like, yep, it's broken out, let's go, it's good, it's go time. And yes, it has broken out, and that's good. And obviously what this is, again, is an inverse head and shoulders that's squint, so it could make a pretty nice move all the way back up. But the first thing we need to do when we get these charts out, and when it looks like something that doesn't have the problems in front of it, and it could be something that we do want to play, is we want to jump to the weekly. And the weekly is one of my favourite ones, just to get rid of the kind of noise of the chart, and see what it's doing over the grand scheme of things, and find some patterns on this level that we can look at as well. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll put that on that one. So we want to find our patterns in the weekly level, just to see what it's doing in a bigger scale. And then we can drop down to the daily, you can find those patterns inside it. And that's why quite often you'll see I'll have a lot of different coloured lines in my charts, just to kind of give that kind of noticeable difference to the chart. And after saying that, I should probably change the colour, because I just look like a dupe. So you can see this is obviously our main trend, and we broke out of this one, and this is what we say when we get breakouts of patterns that are longer term like this one, and where it has been downtrending for a long time. Is what we'll see is it will break out and it will retest, and not always will it just retest like what we see in the kind of drawings, where it pops out and it retests once and then it's just off and that's it, and you've got your move. This is more likely what happens unless something happens, whether it's a sector movement or whether they get hit by some good PR. You'll see it just kind of run down the outside of the trend line until it hits that support again, and finds a support level again. And obviously it found support in the kind of level over here. So then this is obviously a good movement for... Have I just deleted the small line again? Damn it. So then this is obviously our next movement of the stock, and we've broken out over this one as well. So what we'll be looking for this to do, if we weren't already in, which some of us are already in, is to give us a good place to buy. And what would be a good place to buy right now? And that I'll give you a hint, the answer is not right now. So again, what we want this to do is give us a retest of something, because it's easy for us to think this is going to keep going, but as everyone knows, there's going to be a lot of levels involved in front of us. So whether it's this level up here, or whether it's a level down here, or anything, we could get a retest of any line. So what we'd want this to do is come down and hit in this level somewhere, and whether it gives us that or not is a different question. And if it doesn't want to give us it, what we want to do is give us a breakout of a level that we can play on. And obviously, yes, then we might miss out on some money and some of the percentage gains, but we get a higher probability of the next movement. So whether we get a retest or whether we play a breakout, we want to make sure that we've got a nice risk reward, and we want as little reward as we want as little risk as possible. So we want to make sure that we are choosing what our risk is, and we don't want the chart to choose a risk. So if we were buying here, the chart's already given us a few percentage or a decent, almost 10% or 9% or something back down to the line. So we want to make sure we either get a retest here or we just ignore it until it does what it wants to do. And when it does hit one of these resistance lines, we can either play the breakout or we can wait for it to retest off of that one, and that might be where it bounces down. Because obviously it did find resistance up here from something. So it will come back down, or hopefully will come back down, and if it doesn't, we'll wait for the next movement. But yeah, this is a really good ticker, and I think Impressive Emu himself played this one really well with a 950 average.
RSI almost has an inverse head and shoulders ascending triangle thing going on.
It does indeed. Yeah, so that kind of follows the main flow as well. And it's when it doesn't follow the flow of the chart is when it gets interesting, when it gives us a divergence, either on the top or the bottom. That's when the RSI gets really kind of interesting. For the most part, it should just follow the channel. Oh, I've got questions. Yeah, this is a really good chart though. We're probably a day late or a couple of days late on this one, but it is a really good chart. Average student, how far of history plays do you look for? In other words, how much history do you want to see to feel confident about playing it? I'd like to see a good 2 years, more often than not. I'd like at least a year of data. I'd like probably 2 years, because a lot of tickers, you'll see them when they come on, they start up nice and high and they just get pulled all the way down, and they do loads of kind of nonsense, and they come all the way down until they find a level, until everyone's kind of, I mean the people that we trade against, until they've got all their shares at the nice low levels, until Melo's got his shares at the nice low levels, and this is lagging a lot right now. We don't want to be kind of rushing into playing it, because at any point they can just decide, right, this is a company we want to bring down, and whether they want to bring it down to get their own shares or whether they want to bring it down just to kill them, we don't kind of want to play it too far that side. So yeah, I'd like a decent amount of history. I tend to look for 2 years, at least, but I mean it doesn't mean you can't play them. It just means that I probably won't be playing them with you, as a swing anyway. And obviously there are kind of things I will play, like you saw Alpha was playing last week. It doesn't have that history, but I've managed to play it a decent few times, and make a decent lot of money on it, but it wasn't a swing. It was a day trade, and I don't mind day trading ones like this because they have eyes on them and they can get big movements, but they just don't have that good history to kind of look out for and get the bigger trends in it. What's the other one? Have a preference on drawing lines off the wicks or where it opened or closed below it. I think I might have deleted the chart that I drew the lesson of that on. But yeah, what I'll do with these ones is if I'm using daily candles, more often than not, I'll want to use the wicks. If the wicks give me a consistency in movement and a consistent level in line, I'll use the wicks because that gives me the best range of what it's been doing. If they're all over the shop and I need to turn this off. If you're getting wicks that are like, that middle one's wonky. If you're getting wicks like this, it's too hard to kind of draw your trend line if your candles are all, even your candles are all usable underneath these. It's too hard to kind of draw the trend line on the wick because it's not going to be there for you to use. Actually, I've kind of drawn that badly as well. Get down here. So for something like this, I'd be using the bodies of the candles to kind of get the line that's going up. Just because the wicks aren't consistent, but it's something you have to kind of work out from the chart. So in this one, we'd be using I know I've drawn this badly, but I was rushing. We'd be using that as obviously our trend line. If we got consistent wicks, we'd preference would be to use them. Yeah, is that my link? Someone posted a link, even better. Oh, it's my link. Yeah, so there's when I drew it better. So if you click that link, you'll see a lot better drawn than what I just managed to do there. And you can see on that one that, actually I'll bring it over. You can see here, whoa, this one would be using the wicks because it gives us the full range of the chart. And this one would be using the bodies because these are they're not consistent, but the bodies are giving us a consistent movement. So that's what I'd be wanting to kind of, oops, have I done that? That's what I'd be wanting to kind of use initially is the wicks, but if they don't give us that consistency, we'll have to swap over and use the bodies of the candles. On the weekly time frame, there's a chance I'll use both. And just see what kind of interacts, because obviously the weekly there's a lot of movement in some of the highs. I can't remember what chart I was just on when I was doing the weekly. It was Sun W, wasn't it? Don't know why I closed it. So you saw in the weekly line, I dropped it down to the body of that top candle, because this has got a lot of movement in it and a lot of buying and selling pressure, and turns out to be one of those big spinning top dojis up there. So I used the body in this one, but you can kind of see them where they interact, and it gives you a better idea of what you need to draw. But if you did it on the daily, you can see it holds the top up here, and you could have played it onto this line, and you would have seen that it's not interacted with it all that well, or you could have put it on this one and you could have seen that it's not really interacting with it all that well. So you need to kind of, I can kind of see them from my head, but it's just a case of if you're newer and you're just charting, you need to work out where the best one is. Right, so we got a couple more tickers to go. DPW. Who was it that mentioned DPW? For the breakout, would you start also drawing lines or just wait lines for possible new patterns while leaving the initial channel up as the breakout went from a few candles and then fell back to the channel? Which ticker was that? Oh, for those patterns. For that breakout, would you start? Yeah, which ticker are we talking about? Scalps and snacks? I was channeling. Oh jeez. This one? That one. Yeah. No, so I mean obviously I wouldn't be drawing much on this one just because when it did break out I've got nothing to work out where it's going next. You'd have to use like fibs or something to work out where it's going next. But what I would have done is I had this line in to see if it could have caught support here and made another move for like a day trade or something to bounce it out of this, because chances are you could have played it back up to like the top of the flag, which isn't a hard trade, and you could have probably swung it up there because you know you've got your risk line here on your trend line, but because it's broken down, yeah, I kind of deleted the line, and I'll just wait and see if it can hold support somewhere, and see where it wants to do next, because obviously our other trend line was going up here, and we've died out of that as well, I think now. Yeah, so we've got too much noise on top of us, so we need to wait to find support and then make another move. But I'll draw the patterns up here once we got the breakout, because it was forming a pattern. Did that answer the question? Yeah, awesome. Right, DPW. And APAT's favourite. And he's actually put up some nice DD for you all in the new swing floor if you want to take a look at DPW as well. But I'm sure anyone who was on James's session already knows what I'm going to tell you about DPW. And is that it does the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And that is a pop and a curl and a pop and a curl and a drop and a pop and a curl, and it just keeps doing it over and over and over, and you can see it all the time. Like change the sizes, but it's the exact same movement every time. They PR and it dies, and they PR and it dies. And obviously they were doing a lot of PRs around the Bitcoin time, and that's where they got their big movement. And obviously Bitcoin's having a bit of a struggle right now, but we know that DPW does absolutely everything. There's a sympathy play to literally anything, I think, apart from the mushroom retailer FAMI. I think that's the only thing this doesn't do. I'll delete that line for now because it's out. So yeah, this is something that we could look at, and you can see that even when APAT's put up his post, he was saying the chart doesn't look very good. And he was exactly right on that. The chart doesn't look very good, and the chart never really looks very good. But what you can expect with DPW is that they will start trying to PR now again because of the movement with the EV industries and the infrastructure bill, and the charging aspect that they've got. So I think they've actually got two possible sympathies in terms of that. So they've got two companies and subsidiaries that they've got shares in that are doing EV charging. So it could be something that we could look at, but we need it to give us something in terms of the chart to work with, because it's just, it's wonky. It just does its own things, and we need it to kind of give us some lines that we could play off, or the breakout. And obviously 3 has been interacting really strong with it, and 3 is obviously our psych level, and you can see it's been off by like 2. I'm still off by 2. That'll do. You can see 3's been a really strong level for it. So if it can get over that, you could get a pop, but you'll probably just get a drop as well. If we could get this down to a nice level, we could maybe hold it a little longer and wait for it to make that pop. But it's not really something I'd be rushing into. But if we can get it down to here, and we could play up in this ascending triangle up out of here, we might get a bit of a stronger pop. Almost like something, yeah. Good timing. So yeah, we could play this ending triangle if we can catch it on this line or the breakout. But you do need to be aware that chances are this one will pop and just get brought back down. Even when it was doing its big movements on the Bitcoin plays, it did the same thing. It pops. It didn't manage to do a 2-day pop, and it just got brought back down. It popped and it got brought back down. It just does the same thing over and over, pop and a curl. and it's been doing this ever since it was kind of conceived. Just because there's just people don't understand what they do, because they just do too much. But they actually had really good earnings this year as well, so I'm really surprised if they did get a pop pretty soon, and they did PR very soon as well. So it's definitely something that you should have on watch, but Apex has already covered it for us. Yeah, we can play that Ascendant Triangle, which is not bad at all.
I see lots of cup and handles on this one. Can I ask you to do FLL just because I have to go and I wanted to see if that's a good chart?
Right. Well, it's kind of died out that bottom trend line, which is a bit of a shame. It regained it and it got rejected again. I'd like it to get back into the trend, to give me a bit more confidence it's going to do something. Again, it's got that kind of rising wedge vibe that we don't like, so they really could just bring this one down quite far. It's a casino, so they might be opening soon and get some movement for that in the terms of post-COVID levels. But we need it to kind of give us something here and give us a pattern in here to play off, because this rising wedge we don't like, and everything else is going on isn't great. So it did this rising wedge, it turned into a bit of an ascending triangle, it broke out and it died and got pulled back under, it broke out, hit these roadblocks and it got brought back down. So we need it to kind of give us something better to play off it, because we can't just be like, oh, this will be a strong support, because it's already proven that it will break back under it, which it did before. It's got an inside bar just now, but this is some mad volume, which we don't like to see in an inside bar. Obviously, what we want is this volume candle to be the first one on this candle, and we want a low volume inside bar. So I'd be a little bit worried that they might bring this down a little bit more. But if it can regain a trend line, it would definitely be something that we could rechart eventually. But I think for now, I'd probably say it's going to be struggling to be a play. I have a question on BBIG. You had mentioned at the beginning of the lesson you'd probably stay away from BBIG, even though the chart shows good promise and the merger got pushed. Is there a chance it will run again? I think you mentioned the reason why you wouldn't play is due to the eyes on it. Do you like to stay away from plays that have so much attention? Yeah, so with things like that, I don't mind playing things that have a lot of eyes on it, as long as I can get it nice and low. And there's a couple of examples recently. Oh, it's not going to show me post hours on this, is it? Yeah, RSLS was one that has eyes on it, but it had eyes on it too soon. I waited for it to find that bottom, find some higher lows on the hour, and I got in and it had that big pop on Friday. But things like BBIG, where it's had so much attention and it's got a lot of retail in it, it's quite hard to convince yourself to then buy where it is, because obviously this channel is now broken. I'll take out my alert lines. This channel is broken. It's found a nice doji here, but we'll want some better signals for it now. So I'll take this out since it's dead. If we get in early though, having a lot of eyes on a ticker isn't bad. It only kind of becomes an issue once something bad happens, because a lot of the retail will get out. But we could look to play something like that on it and try and find that as your support and your pattern in there. Cheers, wheels. So we could eventually try and get another starter position for the run up to the next merger, because there are going to be people that are in this that are still in this, and are probably been buying when it dropped back down and up in their position. And we know retail, when this comes back round, they'll start to get back interested and look to take another position for the merger if they did get out. So it's not something that's completely dead. But yeah, if we can get in down here and take a starter, we can at least play a risk off under these wicks, because we got a kind of double bottom wick here. Or if we can get in on the wicks, that would be even better. And you can kind of take another starter in it for the run up to the merger. I don't know when the merger date actually is now. We need to wait and see. I never read news, so someone else can tell me. Last chart. Sun. That's what my dad says when I've done something right. Where is Sun? Or was that just a random call out we had? Sun 2. Right, well, we'll chart it anyway, even though I don't see it. I think, was that just I think that might have just been the... Yeah, it's basically Sun W. So it's just a sector trend. No, I won't bother charting that one. But you can look at that one yourself, guys, since it's following the trend of Sun W and whatever else is in the solar one. So this is what I will do every single day, probably twice a day for all 26 pages. Obviously, I'll probably find the better ones slightly faster. And I'll be able to kind of knock out some of the noise just from far too much screen time, to be honest. But I'll just fire through all these pages, and I'll just be like firing up and down, like, yeah, inverse head and shoulders, it's broken down, might find trend. This one could give me a nice bull flag, and just go a little bit speedier through them. But you guys all have the scanners and you know how I'm doing it now, and this one, like, ascending triangle up to 750. You guys can go through and look at the scanners yourself now, because you know how I do it and what I look for and what I try and avoid. And then obviously what we do next is we take it over into our charting software and we look at it. And then once we've got it in our charting software, what we want to do, I'll just use this for now. Please don't try and play this because it's got a mad float on it and it takes too long to make you money. But what we'll do is we'll find a line. So if we got this bottom trend line here, if you can do this on TOS, I'm pretty sure as well. But what you want to do is add an alert. So you can either add an alert to the trend line if you really want it there, or what you can do is what I tend to do is set an alert just above them. And you'll see a lot of my kind of horizontal levels on the charts are actually slightly off of the actual strong support and resistance levels. It's because I've got my alerts set on them. But what you can do is set an alert just above, and create an alert there, so when it's coming down, you know to start looking on its way down. So you could have it in like one of those levels. And then when it hits that, that's when you look at the intraday chart. And you do the same for the way up. So if it's something you're in, get something that I'm in. What we want to do is, let's remove my line. Hey, stop moving. So what we want to do is have an alert just above this breakout, have an alert at our previous high, which is on this line. I think I might have set broker alerts actually for these ones. So we want alerts for our sell places as well. So we'd have an alert here, we'd have an alert here, and we'd have an alert here. And obviously you can set where they actually are in terms of the numbers on the way back up and on the way down. But that's how we play them if we don't want to be sitting staring at the chart all the time. And that's why I can wander off and sit and watch Disney Plus. It's because I've got these alerts on my phone and on my computer. And they just tell me when I need to look. So once you've got your chart sorted, stick your alerts in, and then that's you pretty much set for the week coming. And and I'll do this every single weekend and most nights as well if I'm not on voice getting asked loads of questions.
Sorry, Chief.
No, it's fine. I don't mind answering questions. So yeah, getting your alerts in is the next step. So that's your 3 steps: FINVIZ, charting, and alerts. And once you've done that, you're pretty set up for the week coming for your swing positions. And as I always say to the guys as well, just as I'm finishing up, have more than one watch list. Don't just have a watch list, because you need to know why it's on your watch list. So have like a back burner one, have one for channels, have one for breakouts, have ones for potential setups, and then have ones for setups that have broken. Just because you might get another chance to play the ticker and you know there's eyes on it because it's made the movements, and it's done it before. So there's definitely things you can do, but obviously you can see I've got quite a few different ones, and I've got an Excel sheet of other ones as well. Any last few questions or so, or we'll finish up?
Did we look at MDCA in this?
MDCA? I don't think so. Why? Oh, we must have. Did we? Or maybe I've just had this charted anyway.
I have no clue. I had found it because I thought of this same channel. Like, this is what I have similarly for it. So I was wondering if you had seen it.
Yeah, I was watching it. I think I might have charted it when you mentioned it. But yeah, obviously what we're worried about with this one is this.
Yeah.
I need to take that magnet off, but you get the thing. Head and shoulders. So we need to make sure it holds this again, and then we can play it up. It's obviously the head is caused by this evening star, so we need to be kind of aware of that.
Yeah, it had massive volume on that last red candle too. It's like, if I remember correctly, it's something like 20 times the normal volume.
Yeah, 6 million. Usually about 500,000.
There were so many tickers Friday that had such high volume. I'm wondering if the institutions were repositioning their portfolios.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And we've got the Russell inclusions tomorrow.
And if you look left, there's a level like right where those top candles are hitting that's in a gap. Like the gap is above it. So that was kind of a key level in my estimation anyway.
This is lagging so bad right now. I don't know what I've done. I think Streamlabs is killing my laptop. Oh yeah, your gap.
There you are.
Yeah. What happened over here? Holy Jesus. Yeah, you've got a gap up there above 6.
And that line where that peak is the same line where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we can bounce, it would eventually be quite nice, because we can bounce it up and up, and then every time it gets to the top we can wait and see if we can fill that gap, because if we do start filling the gap it will go faster. Your gap fills are like breakouts on steroids most of the time, and they just kind of zoom.
Yeah, I'm worried with the RSI making lower highs though. May just crash.
Yes. Yeah, I don't do enough alerts. Need to work on, as well as redoing my scanners on Thinkorswim. Yeah, I mean, alerts is super helpful because it means you can just kind of go and enjoy your day. But yeah, I don't use Thinkorswim. I'm not allowed to use it over here, but if you want to use Thinkorswim scanners, that's fine. FINVIZ is free, so you can use that as well. It's completely up to you.
Actually, what do you think of the? I'm sorry to make you go back to it, but what do you think of the weekly on MDCA? Because to me it looks like it's like starting to form or keep on the back half of the cup, but I just wouldn't know how to read that at all.
Yeah. It looks alright. But it could fail, and it could come down and give us an inverse head and shoulders move back up, which would probably be a little bit stronger. But we need to wait and see what it wants to do.
Yeah.
But you always have my trends in, because you can see obviously it was a head and shoulders originally, which caused it to come down. So it's going to be a strong level to get over up here if we did go longer term in it. But you don't have any kind of trend roadblocks on the weekly, because it's kind of got over that one. It's well out of that one, which is at least a positive.
Maybe this is more of a mellow style thing for the full move.
Yeah, it could be, but what always happens is we'll play it and then Mello will take a look at it and add it to his one, and he'll play it once we've played the channels, because he likes them once they kind of got out, or once they're at the really, really bottom and the death of the stock. Thinker skin, yeah, I know. I do like a tongue twister. Right, anything else? Anybody?
Going once, going twice.
That's 2 hours. That's a decent session for everyone. Hope it helped at least. And I'll get a watch list made up for Monday.
Obviously, it wasn't helpful at all, Broda.
Obviously,
Thanks,
everyone
dude.
just came
Really
here for 2 hours to hear my accent.
Hey, don't underestimate that.
Thank you for all that you do, Broda.
Cheers, man.